Yeah, I think I said it early when C was out the very first time. While we don't like it, sometimes it can be a blessing in disguise because everybody else finds themselves, right? And no one is afraid to make the big play, offensively or defensively. And when one person doesn't have it, somebody else does. And I think it makes this really, really difficult to scout when that happens.
It began with a news conference that ought to have focused on hope, solidarity, and resilience. Stephanie White spoke about Sydney Colson's and Ari McDonald's heartbreaking season-ending injuries while standing in front of reporters, her voice shaking with sorrow. She praised her influence both on and off the court, calling them incredibly kind individuals, and conveyed her profound sadness for their loss. However, many saw this as more than just a coach demonstrating empathy. It was the beginning of a startling double standard. Because White's response couldn't have been more dissimilar when Caitlin Clark had her own accident only a few months prior. And supporters haven't forgotten. The difference between those two, the Indiana Fever organization, is currently in danger of being consumed by firestorm since the cases are so acute and indisputable. When Clark, who is perhaps the WNBA's most significant player, suffered a groin injury and had to miss time. White didn't talk about irreplaceable contributions or cry. She referred to it as a disguised blessing instead. Since then, that statement has persisted, stoking rumors, inciting ire, and making many question whether the head coach of the Fever actually appreciates a player that revolutionized their franchise on their own. There is more to this than one dubious remark. It has to do with what that remark disclosed. As they watch the video again, they are amazed by the change in tone, role players' emotional engagement, and the superstar's clinical indifference. Words count in sports, particularly when a coach is influencing team culture and public opinion. Given the current belief held by the public that Stephanie White has a plan that might not include honoring Caitlin Clark's outstanding achievements. Many believe that no amount of spin can undo the harm that has already been done. This is the worst part. This wasn't a casual remark made by a new coach. White has a long history in the basketball industry. Someone who is aware of the seriousness of what she says, which is why the blessing in disguise comment didn't seem thoughtless. It seemed purposeful. You can see exactly how this must have worked out for Clark if you've ever been a top employee whose employer seems happier when you're not in the office. The inference was not subtle. Others can finally shine without you. Fans felt that was a smack in the face to everything she stands for, not just to Clark. This player brought in sponsorships, increased TV ratings around the league, made the Fever relevant again, and transformed empty seats into sellouts. However, her own coach saw her absence as a chance for others to find happiness rather than a tragedy to be lamented themselves. It is not only a faulty way of thinking in professional sports. It's risky. The reaction was swift, intense, and unrelenting. Fans of the WNBA, the Fever, and even onlookers were shocked by what they had heard. Within hours, calls for white people to be fired became viral on social media, with hashtags like #FireHeight and #RespectCaitlin surging. As they had believed throughout the season, fans viewed this as the most convincing proof, yet of an ongoing prejudice against Clark. The phrase "benefit in disguise" became a catchphrase for people calling for reform. It went beyond simple disdain. It concerned a coach destroying the fundamental basis of her group. However, this was not an isolated incident. Supporters noticed a concerning trend as they started to piece things together. White has adopted a more deliberate, slower offensive strategy since assuming power, which many feel underplays Clark's advantages. The fluid, motion-heavy attack that made Clark's rookie season possible is no longer there. It has been replaced by a strict plan that seems to be made for players with far less star power, cuts down on her touches, and restricts her creativity. Critics saw this as more than just a strategic decision. It was an intentional attempt to lessen Clark's prominence. Naturally, that spotlight is enormous. Clark is more than simply a hoops player.
She is a
brand, a major force in the economy, and a worldwide representative of the sport. Every arena she goes to is completely sold out. Her games all increase TV ratings. Items bearing her name sell very quickly. The significance of the Fever. Her presence was directly responsible for the WNBA's growth and millions of dollars in income. Therefore, it is more than just a personnel issue that her own coach seems to minimize her significance. The crisis is both financial and cultural. The in-court results also say a lot. Colleagues like Lexi Hall and Aaliyah Boston have suffered without Clark. Their influence is waning and their numbers are declining. The disguised blessing theory crumbles under the statistics' weight. The floor becomes more open, space is created, and defenders are forced to stretch in ways that are advantageous to all when Clark is playing beside you. The offense stagnates, shots become more difficult, and the team's overall output drops when she isn't there. However, White's remarks in public present an inaccurate impression. You must recognize the significance Caitlin Clark holds for both Indiana and women's basketball in order to comprehend why this strikes such a deep chord with supporters. She is more than a mere celebrity. Her emergence heralded a new era as a once-in-a-generation talent. She is not merely observed by others. They pay top dollar to see her perform, change her schedule, and fly across states. To hear. Even if her coach uses verbiage to frame her absence as a gift, it goes beyond simple contempt. It is a betrayal. Such betrayals tend to leave wounds that are difficult to heal. The charges of partiality did not surface right away. For months, observers have noticed that White seems more engaged and enthusiastic when talking about particular role players. Many questioned if Natasha Howard's style fit with Clark's when she was hired. White, however, was intent on forcing a chemistry instead of changing the system. It has been hard to overlook the tone difference between her remarks about Clark and those of others in every public encounter. And now, with the injury remarks, the suspicion has solidified into a conviction. In sports, ego is a pernicious phenomenon. Excellent coaches are aware of when to back off and allow their players shine. Others, on the other hand, are unable to resist the temptation to take center stage in order to demonstrate that their strategy, not individual skill, is what wins games. Critics claim that White belongs to the latter group and that she dislikes the notion that Clark should be mostly held responsible for Indiana's prosperity. And if that's the case, then every post-game remark, substitution pattern, and strategic choice contributes to a bigger, more concerning picture. This impression has repercussions that go well beyond the locker room. League officials, broadcasters, and sponsors are all keeping an eye on things. Clark's. Everyone in the league benefits from her marketability, and any circumstance that compromises her performance or reputation has an impact on everyone. For many years, the WNBA has fought for acceptance in society. Clark has played a key role in that conflict. Therefore, it is not only terrible, but disastrous to watch her own coach appear to be undervaluing her. The dynamics within the squad are equally unstable. Players pay attention to how their coach discusses each of them. Additionally, it sends a message when the team's mainstay is treated with less consideration than the bench players. That message has the potential to destroy a locker room by undermining trust and causing splits. Additionally, once that kind of separation becomes entrenched, it is nearly impossible to fix. This might have a positive or negative impact on Clark's entire Indiana career as a young athlete. Fans are even more enraged by this because of Clark's professionalism throughout. She has constantly prioritized the team and has never voiced any public grievances or criticism of her coaches or teammates. She adjusted without objecting even when the offensive strategy moved away from her strong points. Nevertheless, she hasn't received the respect she deserves for her devotion and modesty. Rather than being recognized for her generational potential, she has been regarded more like a replacement part. The front office of the Fever is currently under attack. Permitting this dynamic to persist conveys a concerning message to every athlete, past and present, who might think about playing in Indiana, not just to Clark. Perception is important in professional sports. In the minds of free agents and trade targets, the belief that the company will not adequately value or safeguard its stars becomes reality. The timing couldn't be worse, and the long-term harm could be substantial. Due in great part to Clark's entrance, the NBA is becoming more and more popular. Now is the time to take advantage of that momentum and create a club and culture that can contend for titles and attract a sizable fan base. Rather, Indiana is embroiled in a dispute that takes attention away from a game, splits a fan base, and runs the danger of offending the player who made it all possible. Every great sports tale has a pivotal moment when things could change for the better or worse. This could be the cause of the fever. They have two options. They either confront the problem directly, own the harm done, and resolve to rebuild around Clark, or they can ignore it until it is irreparable. Supporters have expressed their preferences clearly. Whether the front office has the guts to take action is the question. There will inevitably be comparisons to other coaching grades. When Michael Jordan was hurt, Phil Jackson did not rejoice. He constructed the triangle offense to maximize Jordan's skills. Tim Duncan's absence was not presented by Greg Popovich as an opportunity for others to discover who they were. He made defending and encouraging their star the cornerstone of the Spurs culture. In that regard, White's strategy appears to be not only antiquated but also seriously wrong. The stakes are very high for Clark. She has years of potential supremacy ahead of her, but the support, or lack thereof, that she receives now will determine how her career develops. Her ceiling can be limited by the incorrect leadership, culture, or system. And it would be a loss for a player of her caliber, not only for Indiana but also for the sport itself. One cannot stress how urgent this situation is. In the brief WNBA season, every game counts. Every error you make when managing your star player is amplified. White's opportunistic remark wasn't merely a PR gaffe. It provided insight into a way of thinking that might not be consistent with maximizing Caitlin Clark's influence. And Indiana cannot afford to overlook that. Fans do more than merely observe. They are maintaining score. They recall the goods purchases, the sellouts, and the emotional commitment they formed as a result of Clark. Both in person and virtually, they have shown their support for her and their dissatisfaction with the coaching arrangement as it stands. If the front staff disregards the fact that they are jeopardizing not only wins and defeats, but also the core of their fan base. This goes beyond a single player, coach, or even season. It concerns the type of team the Indiana Fever hope to become. Do they wish to be the squad that wasted a once-in-a-generation opportunity due to poor management and ego? Or do they wish to be the group that saw their chance and took it? Establishing a dynasty around the player who has the power to permanently alter a game. Time is running out, and each day that goes by without prompt action feels like a step closer to the past. Clark's heyday will end. Forever, and the DNA has a limited amount of time to take advantage of her influence. Whether this era is seen as the start of a championship legacy or as one of the greatest lost opportunities in sports history will depend on what the Fever do next. Beneath the controversy's surface lies a basic misconception about the composition of successful teams. Stars are more than simply athletes, as the greatest coaches in sports history are aware. Everything else revolves around them because they are the gravitational center. To empower others, they don't lessen their influence. They improve everyone else by utilizing the star's brightness. Caitlin Clark impedes the growth of her teammates. She is the motor that powers it. However, it appears from Stephanie White's remarks and approach that she views Clark's presence as a drawback rather than the blessing it is. It's not just incorrect. It's malpractice committed by the organization. This way of thinking is already having an impact. Once dynamic and surprising, the Fever's offensive is now predictable and unchanging. Since the ball doesn't pass through Clark in the same manner, opposing defenses don't have to scramble as much. The same open glances aren't being given to shooters. Aaliyah Boston has been less domineering, despite flourishing alongside Clark's playmaking. Bad basketball is being produced by the blessing in disguise mentality, which goes beyond poor aesthetics. Fans aren't letting this go because of this. They can observe the on-court product, and it aligns with the mindset off-court. However, the message this conveys to Caitlin Clark herself may be the most harmful effect. Imagine hearing your coach openly applaud your absence when you are the most significant player in your league and the one generating record-breaking ratings. That is alienating in addition to being discouraging. These formative years are essential for a young star to establish credibility with the company. That trust might never entirely recover if it is betrayed now. And following that, the countdown to even though no one will acknowledge it in public, a player's exit frequently starts. It is clear to the Fever front office that this is more than a and her absence from team activities. This candor pierces organizational politics like a knife through butter.